Hello, how are you? And welcome to another Nemarin live stream. We are on air right now, apparently, on LinkedIn, Twitch. We're giving Twitch a go. We do have faith in Twitch. We're giving Twitch a live stream to see what happens. Also on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. And today we're going to be talking about not the election. No. We're going to be talking about the lockdown, which is coming into effect from midnight, I guess, from tomorrow in England, and the kind of knock-on effects, if any, to video production, basically. It's obviously the second lockdown that England's been in. The first one was a little bit confusing, as we all know. It was a very fluid situation, whereas I think potentially the second time going into lockdown, this time slightly different because we know what the various challenges are going to be. So today we're going to be talking to a colleague of ours from Nemarin, Juan Leon, who's one of our super producers. He's going to be talking about some shoots that he's been on recently and the way that we should still be able to film during this lockdown in England. Now, we are aware that the rules are different for different parts of the UK, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, potentially even different parts of England as well. So, but generally the rules apply, similar rules apply wherever you are in the UK. But yeah, just to kind of put that out there, we are aware that there are some differences depending on where you happen to be watching at the moment. So hello to Juan, who is joining us. Nice to see you again, Juan. And we also are very lucky to have Mark from Movie Medics as well. Hi, Mark. How are you doing?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. And just to say, I'm actually not in my living room at the moment. I'm actually not even in our office. I'm very close to our office. And unfortunately, I've left my keys at home. Like, keys are actually in the car, and I can't get into the office. So I'm literally sitting in the canteen at the moment, which is hilarious. And the meeting room's booked. So if you can hear some random Whitney Houston music playing in the background and the coffee machine going off, that's why. Now, as ever, we would love to hear from you. If you have any questions as we go, do drop us a line using the chat box on whichever platform you are on. We know that kind of filming in a lockdown kind of prompts lots of questions, and we would love to get those questions from you. We've got a panel of experts who you've just met who would love to ask those questions, particularly if they're really complicated, send them Juan's way. I'm sure he'll appreciate it.
Thank you.
Actually, so let's start off with Mark. So Mark, perhaps you can sort of set the scene for us and kind of clarify one thing straight away. Is it legal or illegal to film as of tomorrow in England?
It's legal. It was never actually illegal. So what we're looking at is the industry, in effect, first of all, shut down voluntarily. In the first lockdown, particular reasons were lack of space, lack of PPE, maintaining that social distance. But some productions did continue, and I was working throughout all of the lockdown on various productions. Various industry bodies have given guidance around how to shoot safely during the pandemic as well, which we follow quite closely. And as a company, we provide the COVID supervisors to help with that monitoring.
Yeah, and it would be really interesting to hear a little bit more about the COVID supervisors and what your role is on set. But a question for Juan as well. We've actually been filming in previous lockdowns already, haven't we?
Yes, indeed. So in the previous lockdown, we were film. And this one is not going to be any different. And also abroad, as soon as the lockdown released, which is a coincidence, we could have done it anyway during the lockdown, but we did go to Zurich, and it was an international shoot, high-profile client, so all the precautions needed to be taken care of, but also we had to run the extra mile to make sure that everybody felt, that we had thought of all the in and outs. The usual stuff, using gloves, masks, and measures like taking the temperature of people arriving on set, and making people arrive at different times, and making sure when we are recording sound, we're booming, as opposed to using lapel, talent being self-applying makeup, so coming camera ready. So yes, that definitely was never a reason that stopped us. So what you see now on the screen is this part of the video of what we filmed. So it was basically a normal shoot, just taking all the precautions. Even scenes in a tight space like the car, windows open, mask from the camera team. So it was just another layer that we had to add to our logistics. But if you see the video, you will never know that this had happened during a pandemic. And the results are exactly the same that it would have happened, if we had shot this on 2019.
Yes, and then actually another question for Mark at this point. So Juan actually acts as one of our COVID monitors because he's been on various training courses, including one that you guys were involved in. But can you tell us what a COVID monitor does, and also what you guys do when you're on set during a film shoot?
Yeah, so as COVID supervisors, generally the start really will be on the tech recce. So we now come along on the tech recce just to make sure where you're actually filming has got plenty of ventilation, has got enough space for you to actually film. And also we're now thinking about what you're going to do with the cast and crew, because gone are the days where you can stick them maybe outside underneath a pop-up because you're only allowed X amount of people, trying to keep that distance of 2 meters. So once the recce is done, we can then obviously advise production and various means. Then when we start filming, the very first thing is test temperature. You're looking at anything about 37.8, and then we're sort of like isolating that individual. And then during the shoot, just maintaining distances, making sure what people are wearing the correct PPE. If they're wearing the 3-ply masks, making sure they change them every 4 to 8 hours. So it's really keeping on top of everyone's PPE, as you can see.
And so who are normally your clients? Are you kind of working with production companies, or are you working sort of with brands, or are you working with insurance companies? But I guess you're sort of almost separated from the actual production team. Is that right?
Yeah, well, like their initial involvement is with the production team, but thereafter we're involved with TV, movies, any productions. We've been involved quite heavily actually within the filming industry, sending various guys out on productions. But yeah, we've been absolutely manic. But what we do and what we specialise is sending out medics, that supervisors as well, because they're hand in hand. As soon as the supervisor sees somebody is maybe having a cough or high temperatures, the first thing they do is send them over to the medics. So we provide medics and supervisors for them. And again, it saves production as well.
Yeah. So in a way, you're almost a supervisor for the COVID supervisor, detached from the production company, which I suppose is a good thing, because then you're not necessarily financially invested in the production, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. And would you kind of, in theory, have the power to kind of close down a shoot if you think that where this is getting ridiculous? Would you have the authority to kind of close something down?
Again, it's working with production. I mean, it's guidance at the end of the day. But I've been on some sets where we have had to send people off set because, again, they're showing all the signs and symptoms of COVID. They're given a media PCR test and told to isolate until that test has come back negative. It can be 24, 48 hours.
Yeah.
We have been involved in one production where it did happen close to one day, but it was down to human error from the testing centre.
What are the main challenges that you're coming across at the moment?
Really, I would say people not wearing their masks correctly. And at the beginning of the day, fantastic. They wear them accordingly across the face. Halfway through the day, it's more of a chin shield. And during the end of the day, it's pulled down. But this is the case. People are now getting on board that they have to wear these masks, mainly for protection from themselves. So it's just going around making sure it is a face mask instead of the chin mask.
Yeah. And could you summarise what the situation is in regards to filming in different parts of the UK, and also travelling overseas? Because I can imagine it is complicated, isn't it?
Yes. Again, we work closely with the production companies, but it's really all about managing the risk. As long as you can manage the risk, you can film anywhere within reason. It's again about having the right PPE equipment on hand, and having the right staff as well that have the right mental attitude. But apart from that, you should be able to film everywhere. There's nothing to stop you.
Yeah, and obviously the lockdown that's coming into effect tomorrow really applies to England only, but it is possible to kind of film in Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland at the moment, I think.
Yeah, I believe so. As long as you manage that risk.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, we actually managed to film a few weeks ago. Tom, one of our super producers, they're all super. Filmed a little behind-the-scenes video. So let's have a quick look at that.
It's the middle of June. We're back in the office, this time for some filming. Other than the stuff that you guys might have been seeing on LinkedIn, this is the first client shoot we've done in the UK for about 3 months, so this is very exciting. So it's a pretty simple shoot. Person straight to camera with an iDirect. Talent's not here yet, but we've got a boom mic here on the stand, so we don't need to touch any lapel mics, we don't need to go near the talent or the client to apply anything. It's a nice 2 meter distance from the camera and the crew to the talent. We'll take a step back when they come in, get them in position, wearing masks, it'll look like this the whole time. Talent won't be wearing masks when they're on camera, but we've got a nice 2 meter distance between them all time. That's about it. That's pretty much all there is to it. It's nice and simple and straightforward. See how it goes.
Yeah, and that shoot went really well. So thank you to Tom for doing that. That was filmed in our office you can see that we had lots of masks and we were keeping our distance and so on. Actually, a relatively straightforward shoot. It's essentially just an interview. But yeah, it's just really important to stress that you can film at the moment. It's just a case of taking lots of precautions, which is totally understandable. So Mark, tell us a little bit more about your business and what have you been working on at the moment?
So the Movie Medics, really, we provide film and television medics, whether you're producing in the UK or abroad. We also have hostile medical courses. So if you are traveling abroad, we've got our experts there to keep you on board. We provide PPE for any production. We've just started introducing fogging on sets to make sure everything is sterile before and after. We've got physiotherapists from Marco Physio that we can bring on board if you're using stunt, if you are using the stunt team. We've also got our media survival experts. So again, if you're going abroad into remote locations, they're on hand to give you all their expertise on how to survive in those situations.
Fantastic. And a question for Juan here. So generally speaking, most things actually can still go ahead as normal. Obviously, there are things like bubbles and so on that you need to consider. But I guess there's one area which is still a little bit challenging, and it'll be great to hear from Juan on this, around hair and makeup. That's still a little bit, still doable, but a bit tricky, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is still doable, absolutely. It's just, I mean, there are shows that are doing it, and for drama is very much required. The experience that what I've seen have been of hair makeup people wearing the full PPE, the mask, but then also the visor, and pretty much like the images that the Mark was showing. On a smaller production that makeup is not so required, we always advise against it if it's possible, if it's just a simple interview. And we just are asking the talent to come already. But everything is possible. It's just taking all the measures that are needed.
And just going back to the recent project that we did in Switzerland, what were the main considerations there from a COVID point of view? Because I guess it's always such a challenge in terms of the story that we're trying to tell, whilst keeping everybody safe.
Well, the thing that I was chatting earlier with Mark is that by that point, when we went to film in Switzerland, of course, people had already a big awareness of it. So as is happening now on the shoot, yes, of course, there has to be a monitor and you need to supervise, but everybody is aware and is on their own safety. So you wouldn't see people, doing reckless stuff. Everybody is very, very aware of the situation, and it's a collective effort as well as our everyday life. This just has become something embedded. So yeah, from that sense, it's something new, but it's definitely something that has been absorbed and become a new normality also within the filming.
So I guess it's kind of part of the health and safety process. It's just an extension of that in many ways.
Exactly. Like we always have like really extensive risk assessment to make with are we filming outside at the cars? Are we using extras? Where are we putting the people on the? Is there a green room? Is there a restrooms nearby? And all of these things need to be considered. And this has just become one of the things that we just have to cater for in the risk assessment.
Yeah. And Mark, does it need to be expensive? Like this extra? Well, it's probably a question for both of you actually. But this extra layer of complexity, does it need to add very much money to the production?
Yeah, looking at the new COVID regulations throughout filming, you're looking at an extra 15 to 25% on production, purely to adhere to those guidelines, depending on your budgets. When you think about filming, you've got to think, again, we mentioned earlier about bubbles. So who's going to be in this bubble? Who's going to be tested? Okay, we may have producer, may have the talent, may have boom, may have camera, but then you've got to think about the SAs. Then you've got to think about makeup. So all of this is adding up, and the tests are not cheap. There is new tests coming out that we can do within about half an hour to an hour. Those are the ones we're actually looking at now, but the other ones can take up to 24 hours. So it is expensive.
Yeah. Do you know roughly what the ETA is for those rapid tests? Are we talking weeks or months or
No, rapid tests you'll get within, Heathrow is doing it at the moment within an hour. I believe Boots, I saw an article last week, Boots are doing it within half an hour. So give it another month, it'll be on set within half an hour. You'll know with the PCR test, negative or positive.
Yeah. And can you tell us what can't be done at the moment? Are there kind of any major restrictions in terms of just what can't be done?
Everything can be done. Everything can be done. Nobody should be put off by these restrictions, as long as you manage the risk. And that's the key thing: manage the risk. Good risk assessments, good COVID supervisors to actually help you and guide you on the way. So no, everything should be going ahead as normal.
Cool. Just making a coffee in the background. And just what about filming indoors and outdoors? Outdoors is obviously easier, but we're going to be in December before we know it. So what about filming indoors? Is that still okay?
Yeah, that's still okay. I remember one shoot I was on. It was only the talent, director, producer, first AD, cameraman, boom op were only allowed in the house. Everyone was outside because it's such a small area. You've got to think about an area. Can we get everyone in there? Can they maintain that 2 meter distance? If they can't, we can reduce the risk. How can you reduce it? Well, get everyone else out. They can stand outside. We can put the monitors outside. But again, when you put the monitors outside, you've got to distance them. They've got to have that 2 meters at least, because people start to gather again. But no, nothing should be restricted as long as you manage that risk.
Fantastic. And what about filming with audiences? So I know there are various big shows, so Strictly Come Dancing, for example, that does have an audience, and obviously they've had to make significant modifications to the normal audience layout. But where do you even start with a program like that, where you need an audience for the atmosphere, but you can only have a fraction of who you would normally have in the room?
That's not my question. Because you just had the latest advice, I believe.
Sorry, say that one more time. I didn't hear you.
I believe you just had the latest advice come up about audiences.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, our friends from Pact. We sent an email a little bit earlier. It's obviously a very fluid situation with updated advice. I think in essence, studio audiences are totally doable, but you need to kind of factor in family bubbles, distances. I know certain programs have been incorporating studio lighting to actually incorporate that new layout into the studio design, which is quite interesting. You can probably do camera tricks with depth of field and so on. But maybe it's a question for Juan then as well. So if we did need, even if it's not an audience, a crowd of some capacity, where would we start with something like that? I know that EastEnders have managed to kind of work their way around it with perspex screens and so on.
I mean, we've seen examples where they've been working with audiences. We have, or the nature of the work that we do normally, that would be a rarity. And for precaution, I would advise against if it's the latest on update that has been come out. I have not been able to see that one too. I think you're a little bit ahead, Peter.
Cool. Yeah, as I say, it's a very fluid situation, but yeah, I think in terms of crowds, it is doable. But yeah, it's down to bubbles. So family bubbles, for example. I know of one major program that's been shot recently that needs an audience for atmosphere, and they're relying on family bubbles to form part of the audience. So essentially, you have little bubbles, groups of bubbles to do that. So in essence, where there's a will, there's a way, but obviously it's a little bit more complicated with the various restrictions that are in place. But I'd be interested to hear from Mark in terms of, as we're discussing, things are changing almost by the hour, and it's quite interesting to stay on top of it all. But what does the future hold? Is this a permanent change now, even if there is a vaccine? Do you think protocols on set from a health and safety point of view have changed forever?
Yeah, I believe they have actually. This is the new norm. I don't think it's going to go away within the next 2 years. So I think people are going to have to get used to it. We're going to have to budget for it. But people are coming on board with it. Every set I've been on now, majority, I would say, are absolutely fantastic with the PPE, wearing the mask, wearing the gloves, including our makeup, hair. Everyone is on board. The future of filming will not change. We're going to film, but we're going to have the restrictions in place and abide by the rules.
As and when projects come up, Juan, from a producer's perspective, how do you think things have changed permanently? If we look at 2021, for example.
Yes, as Mark says, definitely this is here to stay, and all the projects for 2021, they all we're factoring in this in all of them, and even if a vaccine and all those rumors that are coming out that is not going to be in place, it will take a while until all that is established. There's a concrete procedure, so for the nearest future, probably next year and a half, 2 years, this will be the new norm. And as Mark is pointing out, it's just not going to stop. People, productions happening and projects developing. We'll just navigate around it as we've done after now. And if anything, we'll just keep getting better at it because we'll know more about the virus and we'll know more by trial error of all these methods.
And what would you say to any client who's kind of thinking about creating some video content in November? Because obviously, we're talking to clients all the time. The question that comes up is it possible? And I know what I say. But Juan, what would your advice be to a business or brand?
It's 100% possible. Like we've done it in the previous lockdown. We did it when the lockdown released, and now it's no different. If anything, I'd say is in a better position because now, as I said, we know more about the virus. So I wouldn't expect brands or that are thinking of commissioning video this to stop them or to pause the production because things can still go ahead normally. So I believe there is an optimism that we will keep working and the brands will commission more work, more still photography and more video because they will keep needing it as well.
Yeah, and the same question to Mark, actually. So if you have a business that's kind of nervous about filming, what would be your advice to them?
Go for it. We're inundated at the moment through November, December, going into January. The amount of films that are being produced at the moment, it's unbelievable. As long as you manage the risks, you'll be fine. Yeah, they shouldn't stop anyone. But it's knowing where the risk is and then obviously compensating for that. Like we said, people are more aware of the virus, what needs to happen. And as long as that keeps happening, then there should be no reason why you shouldn't stop filming.
All right, brilliant. So if anyone watching, if you're thinking about creating video content over the next few weeks, do definitely drop us a line. Hopefully you know where we are over at nemarin.com. And final word to Mark, actually. Thank you very much for being here. If anyone wants to have a chat with you, what's the best way of tracking you down?
Through the website, you've got our email address and also you've got a telephone number as well, our London office. So that's info@themoviemedics.com, or you've got our mobile and telephone number there. And please get in touch.
Cool. Those coffee machines hilarious in the background. A bit of atmospherics for you. Well, thank you guys very much indeed for joining us today. And as I say, there wasn't really anything to be too nervous about in terms of filming. Filming's absolutely permitted at the moment. It's just a case of being extra cautious and being diligent and making sure that everybody is safe and sound. And that's exactly what we do. So you don't need to worry about it. So if you are in England, good luck going into the next lockdown, which kicks in tomorrow. If you're in other parts of the UK, appreciate the rules are slightly different where you are as well. But we'll get through this together, and let's hope for a big boom in 2021 once this is all a distant memory. So that's it for today. Thank you very much indeed for watching. We'll catch you again soon, and here's our latest show reel.
film and video.
The world's branded video agency.
2020 Showreel.
I always wanted to be a storyteller.
I knew I wanted to do something more creative.
Something really magical.
Everything is about rhythm.
Ow! Sheer publicity.
Okay, so the faces thing?
Yeah.
And personal.
There is no comparison to beauty. And you will never get bored of it.